Hi, Miss Lancaster here. So this is my quick video to kind of talk to you just a little bit about what you need to pay attention to in relationship to Chapter 3, our race and ethnicities section of our social problems. So first off, I want to kind of remind you as you're reading through this, a very important piece of understanding race and ethnicity is that they are socially constructed ideas. Um, it is not race itself is something that we've created. And then because it's not really real, there's no like genetic marker specific to race or specific to ethnicity or anything like that. But we've socially constructed these differences to make differences, right? So while it is a social construction and it's not real, it is real in its consequences. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why we have a social problem chapter on race and ethnicity, because while they are not really real issues, they've become issues because society has created problems in relationship to it. So let's think about it. What are some of the problems in relationship to race and ethnicity? Your book will dig into immigration, it'll dig into income and wealth disparities, criminal justice disparities, health disparities, discrimination in general. So when we think about discrimination, there's individual, there's institutional, there's environmental racism. One thing I like to kind of remind students is that racism is not an individual thing, it's a macro level thing. So when we're thinking about these discriminations that are taking place, individual discrimination is bigotry, right? Is one person against another. Institutional is when it's kind of built into the policies of whatever institution that automatic, that basically uh, creates a differential experience for different individuals. And that's really kind of where racism comes in. It's got to be at the institutional level. While reading through your theories for the chapters, I'm like, this structural functionalism, it's all really about assimilation for the most part. All of their theories talk about assimilation, which, if we think about what functionalism talks about, everything in society serves a purpose and serves a function. They do, however, feel that discrimination is dysfunctional, because remember when they talk about dysfunctional, when something is dysfunctional, something has to happen to change in society in order to bring back the function, right? Because it's all about stability and harmony. So really their full focus is on assimilation. And what assimilation is blending into the dominant culture, right? So there's lots of different race relations cycle, and then there's the assimilation theories, the segmented assimilation theories, the 7 stages of assimilation, bumpy line assimilation. While reading through this, just kind of really pay attention and focus to what exactly is this theory talking about. Discrimination is reduced as we assimilate, right? As those that are part of the minority group assimilate. So it really can explain how ethnicities can move and shift and be accepted into the society if they look like the dominant group. Unfortunately, if you don't look like the dominant group, it's harder for you to fit in. I'm like, keep in mind that Italians and Irish were not always considered whites, right? In our society. So just as you're reading through it, recognizing this. When we think about this theory, social policies in many ways tend to blame the victim in a way. Assimilation theories kind of place the burden of fitting in and being accepted into society on the minority, right? On the racial or ethnic individual. So in a way, we are kind of blaming them for their own inequality, but functionalism does see that discrimination is problematic. Okay. Conflict theory really talks about the imbalance that in the inequality, right? Because that's its focus. Inequality and conflict underlie all social relationships. So it really notices this imbalance in society that can oftentimes be based on race and ethnicity. This is where Du Bois, the veil, the double consciousness, the veil basically talks about that distance between unequal racial groups. And the double consciousness it's the dual understanding as the minority themselves, seeing themselves as very, very competent, but then also seeing how society sees them as not, right? So it's this obscured understanding of their own life. The book talks a little bit about white privilege. Keep in mind what privilege is. Privilege is an unearned advantage. So privilege can come in lots of different ways, just like inequalities can come in lots of different ways. Because it's the race chapter, it is talking about white privilege, because if you are white, you are part of the dominant group. And even though you may not be privileged in some aspects of your life, you are likely benefiting from being white, okay, which is basically what white privilege is talking about. Other theories within conflict perspective, the split labor market really talks about capitalism and how we kind of have divided certain jobs into certain responsibilities. And if we really pay attention to our society and who does what, we can kind of notice that if you're a minority, you have a greater chance of being doing some of the what we would consider the dirty jobs in society, where dominant group are much more likely to be doing the clean jobs. Basically, what this theory, if we think about conflict theory in general, the focus is on recognizing the inequalities and doing whatever we can, if we're wanting to implement ideas into social policy, doing whatever we can to kind of reduce the inequality. Because if we don't reduce the inequality, the conflict is not going to go away. Okay. Symbolic interactionism is the last of the major theories, kind of really thinking about how symbols shape our meanings, shape our interactions. So the theories that are discussed in this contact hypothesis, basically saying if we interact with people who are different, have a different racial or ethnic background, the more you interact with them, the more you recognize your similarities rather than your differences, right? Segregation really, really worked very well throughout history to separate people. When we separate people, we can only really see our differences, right? When we sit down at the same table, right? When we interact with people who are different from us, we start to see our similarities. So that's really the whole purpose of what contact hypothesis is talking about. The more we interact with people who are different from us, the more we'll start to see that they're really not as different as we think they are. Then it gets into kind of talking about microaggressions and stereotype threat, stereotypes, and how stereotypes are really, if we think about it from a symbolic interactionist perspective, what are they? They're symbols that have been given meaning, and through interaction, we continue to reinforce them. So just kind of really think about these theories while you're reading through it. The specialized theories that are discussed in this textbook, intersectionality, I kind of touched on that when I was talking about privilege. Intersectionality is the way that we can notice, we can recognize that our various statuses in society can converge, right, to create more opportunity or less opportunity. The more higher level statuses that we have in society, the more opportunities we have, the more lower level statuses that we have, the less opportunities that we have. So we can intersect, right? There can be an intersection. So if we think about a white male in comparison to a woman of color, a middle class woman in comparison to a lower class male, right? All of these different things intersect and shape different opportunities for different people, okay? And then the last one that I really want to touch on is colorblind racism, because colorblind racism is something that a lot of people don't recognize. It goes hand in hand with white privilege, really. It's the idea or the tendency to focus on anything but race. Why is it problematic? Because when we recognize, when we try to take race out of the picture, like, remember how I said at the beginning, the social construction, race is socially constructed. It's real. It's not real, but it's real in its consequences. If we try to step away from recognizing that race does suffer consequences, we're going to kind of miss the consequences, what is actually causing the consequences if we step aside and forget about race, right? It is a macro level thing when we get rid of policies that actually help to kind of level the playing field when we don't recognize things. I'm like, if I want to take it to a micro level, and I don't really like this theory at a micro level, but it's helpful to kind of really think about it. If you know anybody who ever says, well, I don't see race, but, or I'm not, I don't discriminate. I have a Black friend, a Chinese friend, an Asian friend, an Italian friend, right? All of these different things. What are they doing? They're sitting there saying all of these different ethnic and symbolic differences, right? The idea that I don't have a problem with my child uh, dating someone of another race, but what about the children, right? Those are the kind of things that's like at a micro level, we might see as bigoted, but we actually have policies that kind of shape and recognize that in our society, if we look at it, we can see that we're like, oh, we're kind of missing the fact that race is possibly behind the picture. One thing I like to say is if we keep pushing things under the rug, right, eventually you're going to trip over the rug. And that kind of is where I think about with colorblind racism. We kind of say, oh, no, it's not really race related. But when we really look at it, it may be. Okay, so as you're reading through the chapter, please let me know if you have any questions or any concerns. Your assignments this week will require you to watch some videos, and then there'll be a discussion board post, really kind of reflecting on the chapter, the videos, and some other stuff. So let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you have a great day.